Welcome to the InfoMullet YouTube channel. If you enjoy this content, please like or share. And if you'd like to support the InfoMullet by becoming a mulleteer, visit us on Patreon. We appreciate your support. Iraq. So remember, the last time we did an international update was in January 20th of 2021. And right, so the day after that, ISIS bombed Baghdad, central Baghdad. So here we go. Bomb Baghdad, central Baghdad. And this one caught my eye because I've done a lot of work on ISIS. I've done simulations on ISIS. I've consulted with the DoD on ISIS. I did a lot of counter ISIS stuff in the 2014 through 2018. In fact, my master's of science is insurgency dynamics and simulation science because of the ISIS simulations I built. But this bombing occurred here in Baghdad. And what immediately struck me is it was in a particular market square. And it was a two suicide bomber complex attack. First bomber lured in people by pretending he was sick. People came to his aid. He blew himself up. Then the second bomber blew himself off when the aid workers came in to help the people from the first bomb. And so this attack is actually similar to an attack that was held in 2018. And what's important about that, that attack in 2018 was the last attack that ISIS was able to pull off in Baghdad. They had almost exactly the same casualties, 30 to 50 people killed, several hundred wounded, and it was literally within days of each other, January 28th to 21st or something like that. This is a symbolic return of ISIS in Iraq. And I've talked about the forecast. Mike's asked some good Ask Me Anything forecast for the New Year's Eve. I've talked for years how ISIS is coming back as an insurgency. And this bombing, I think, was a symbolic to put themselves back on the map, because what's coming up here in the upcoming year in Iraq is a key fulcrum point, which may lead to the partition or collapse of Iraq, which I've described before. So again, to orient those who are unfamiliar, southern Iraq here, right up to Baghdad, this is primarily Arab Shia area. You have the Sunni triangle here. This is largely going to be Sunni Arab. And then you have up north here, you have the Kurdish area. And the traditional conflict is the Sunni Arabs were supporters of Saddam. They suppressed the Kurds and the Shias. We had no-fly zones in the top half and the bottom part here for years under the Clinton, Bush regimes. Then we invaded Iraq under Bush. We overthrew Iraq, and then began the massive insurgency, which was largely Sunni Arab-based in this area, not as much in the Kurdish area. When we left Iraq in 2011, there was Shia were beginning to overtake Sunni Arabs for political power in Iraq. They were influenced. This is Iran over here to the east. They were coming into Iran, and you began suppressing the Sunni Arabs. The Shia majority began suppressing the Sunni Arabs. That led to grievances, which enabled the rise of ISIS. ISIS began by taking Fallujah and Ramadi in late 2013, 2014. Then they kicked off a huge Anbar offensive and took all the way up to Mosul, almost got Erbil, took Kirkuk, all of this huge area, all the way to the border of Syria and into Syria. So we know what happened there. We gradually pushed them back. They were defeated territorially in 2017, and that's why that last bombing in 2018 was significant. That was the last time ISIS was able to conduct a complex attack inside Baghdad in the last 3-4 years. So fast forward, the situation has gone it's continuing to destabilize. Iran, the popular mobilization committees, these are private militias that were formed by Iran to fight ISIS, never gave up their arms. They continue to be formed. They're not under the power of the central state. They tend to report more to Iran than to Iraq. They have a lot of power and a lot of political support. You still have the Kurds. The Iraq's forced the Kurds out of Kirkuk, which the Kurds had taken fighting ISIS, and they said, hey, thanks for that. They got kicked out in Erbil. And you had this uprising that began in, I called it the New Arab Street. The younger demographics, Kurdish, Sunni Arab, and Sunni Shia, they began to reject the older generation's political divisions and began to call for new elections, new government. They weren't aligned with any existing power bloc. And this was very unusual in Iraq. Began in 2019, was very violent, continued through 2020. You had a lot of violence with the PMCs fighting these protesters. And some of these locations here, Basra is one of the hearts of these protests. So instead of being in the Sunni triangle, these mass popular protests, Basra, Nazira, Najaf, the main key Shia cities are where these protests are the loudest. During that time, up in the Kurdish areas, you had the lingering forces of the Kurdish. So the Kurdistan, you have, let me make sure I'm getting these names right. You have the KDP is the Kurdistan Democratic Party. They're the largest political force in Kurdistan, and the PUK is the Patriotic Union of Kurdistan. So the KDP and the PUK are the two groups that control the large bulk up here. There's a lot of oil up here. They control the Peshmerga. They've traditionally been U.S. allies. Then in fighting ISIS, this group called the YPJ, which was the People's Defensive Groups, the People's Protection Units, began forming in this northern swath of Syria, east of, this is the, I think this is the Euphrates River here. East of this, they begin forming in this arc up here. This was where Kurdish Syria holding was, and it's the YPJ. Now the trick is the YPJ did have some associations early on in cross membership with the PKK. Hold your hats. That is the Kurdistan's Workers' Party, which is an outlawed terrorist group in southern Turkey and northern Kurdistan. It is a, you can call it Marxist communist if you want. Sort of that's their ideological. They're fighting for autonomous regions, for Kurdish autonomous regions in Turkey. There's been a long-running insurgency. Turkey does not like this group at all, and it has caused Turkey to intervene into northern Iraq. So Turkish currently has an intervention against the PKK in northern Iraq, and they are being supported by the KDP and the PUK in northern Iraq. So you got Kurdish conflict going up here. You have Shia conflict going down here, fracturing between the PMCs and the younger generation. You have ISIS rising again in the middle. This is all coming to a head, not by any accident. In June of this year, 2021, Iraq is supposed to have the first parliamentary election since 2018. This is where you literally redraw the political map, and everyone is positioning themselves, ISIS, the PMCs, the students, the younger demographics, Turkey, Kurdish, they're all positioning themselves for this election because whoever wins this is going to be able to call the shots going forward. And ISIS, I think, is trying to time it. Those elections are timed for June. And the current prime minister, his only job is to secure those elections and hold them fair. He may not be able to do it. He may push them off till later. They may not happen till September. But June is going to be the high-risk month. When you're watching Iraq, watch in June for several reasons. One, the parliamentary elections are there. That's the key crisis point that's going to cause, you know, if there's a collapse of Iraq this year, it's going to happen around those elections. Second, Ramadan falls in June. And Ramadan is traditionally, it's a Muslim holiday, holy month, but ISIS has used it to launch provocative attacks. Ramadan is their favorite month for an offense. They do it to often attack Muslims during the holy month. It's a very apostate kind of dick move to do, but that's ISIS for you. And it's also the anniversary of the Anbar offensive that I described in 2014. It's the 7th year anniversary in June of the launch of the Anbar offensive, and they took Mosul in June, and that's when they declared themselves a caliphate. So this June, I don't get into numerology, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of stuff being crammed into June of this month in Iraq, and all of these moving pieces are coming together in this parliamentary elections where everyone's going to be fighting for power. The way ISIS usually operates, they're not that powerful in Iraq right now. They're an insurgency, but they're nowhere near as powerful as they used to be. They're still dangerous, but the way they advance themselves is to divide everyone else and make everyone else smaller versus ISIS. And that's how they create instability. They don't have to be the largest group. If the entire, what they're opposing falls apart into smaller factions, they just have to be more powerful than any one of those factions, and they can carve out another spot for themselves. So that's the key thing to watch going forward in Iraq with the instability, is these June elections that happen to fall right on this trifecta of, you've got conflict between Shia Arabs and their demographics. You've got conflict with Kurdish and the Turkish intervention. You've got ISIS coming back. They're seeing it as the anniversary of the Ramadan or their Anbar offensive, where they declared themselves a caliphate. I kind of hope they push the elections back and get it off that month to give them more chance to create security, more chance to create good conditions for fair elections. But even moving the elections at this point is politically fraught because it's been so long and it's been fought for. So that's a dangerous move to do too. But that's the main risk for instability in Iraq in the coming year. And again, all these links are below if you want to take a look at them. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to follow the Info Mullet, visit us on Facebook or Twitter. And if you'd like notifications when we post new video content, click on the red subscribe button below the video. If you've ever wanted to become a mulleteer and support the Info Mullet, visit us on Patreon. We appreciate the support.